Worst item of all time or underappreciated idea? Let's find out together. Hey guys, it's model making time, and today we're looking at Airfix's 1/72nd scale Boulton Defiant, or as it was affectionately known, the Daffy. This is the new tooling. They had a ancient tooling that we will look at in the Kitstory, but is not what we're building today, though I do have it for comparison purposes. This is an aircraft that, like, for many, when I found it out as a kid, I was fascinated by. A fighter aircraft with a turret on the back. So we'll look at the history of this aircraft itself, we'll try and look at the Defiant in gaming, and we'll look at the Kitstory as well. And if you end up liking this video, make sure to obviously like it and subscribe to the channel as well. Without further ado though, let's get into the history of the Boulton Defiant. It seemed like such a sensible idea. Turrets pack much more versatility in both direction of fire and strategy than just point your aircraft at a plane and shoot at it. This allows you to potentially expose or utilise weak points of an aircraft where they may, I don't know, not have as many defensive elements, or they may just have weak points in their structure. One of the things that was important to note here was we were just getting our first wave of true bombers such as the Wellington and the Whitley, so this was a really sensible technique when you look at it in its context. So it seemed like a good idea. A fighter, and it was classed as a fighter, that was of similar size and performance of its contemporary the Hurricane, but had a turret for armament. So development began with the P-82, which was lodged in response to the Air Ministry's specification F935. The P-82 was not the best though, it actually ranked second. But importantly, this was second and ahead of other really famous manufacturers at the time, including Armstrong Whitworth, which had a twin-engined, quite modern-forward aircraft that would remind you of more like things like, I don't know, the Beaufighter that may eventually replace the Defiant. What was ahead of the Boulton Defiant, though, was the Hawker Hotspur. The Hawker Hotspur was based on the Hawker Hadley, which is also based on the Hurricane. So, I mean, it has a lot of pedigree, doesn't it? Both of these were ordered into development in 1935, with assembly commencing the following year for the Defiant. Our Defiant made its first flight on the 11th of August 1937, which was almost a year ahead of the Hotspur. However, it's important to note that this was without the turret. The second Merlin II powered prototype flew in July of 1939, and this time with the full turret and amendments made, based on what was required in the first flight. This made good improvements to the overall handling characteristics and performance of the aircraft, and, well, the newer engine made a significant difference, allowing performance to be there with the turrets. Although the Hotspur itself was still probably the preferred plane, it was behind the Boulton Pool. And not only that, but Boulton Pool had significant experience with turrets. In fact, Boulton Pool had built the first hydraulically powered turrets on the Overstrand, and it meant they had an expertise that Hawker just didn't. In addition to this, Hawker was also already quite committed on things like the Hurricane, and so it was viewed that Boulton Pool might just be the better option for this particular project. Ultimately, the Hotspur was then cancelled in 1938. Now, initial orders for the Boulton Defiant were completed in January of 1940, and an additional 202 Defiants were then ordered. A total of 713 Defiants were ultimately completed. A new development of the Defiant with a Merlin 20 engine flew in July of 1940. Now, with other modifications made, such as pressurized fuel and a bigger fuel capacity, and the addition of an enlarged rudder and radiator, the aircraft is a perfect match for airborne interception radar, making it a deadly night fighter. It was perhaps in this role that the Defiant would become most well known, and, as we mentioned earlier, would serve venerably until 1942 when the Beaufighter would take over. A twin-engined aircraft. I wonder where I've seen that before. The Defiant did serve its role, and in many people's eyes it was relatively subpar for a number of years. Eventually it would become a target tug, and the turret would also be removed as well, making it look like a very different aircraft. There were other variants of the Defiant considered, and that included the P-85 and P-94. The P-85 was a naval variant of the aircraft, which would ultimately lose out to the Black Button Rock, and the P-94 was a fixed gun version of the Defiant, which would have been more like a Hurricane. In fact, its performance was actually pretty good. It was as fast as a Spitfire, but it wasn't quite as maneuverable, and so ultimately there was just no need for this aircraft. But the Defiant was important in the early stages of the war, Flying in conjunction with other more nimble fighters, the Defiant was there to be a heavy hitter, particularly being able to take down heavier aircraft or bombers. During Dunkirk, the aircraft developed its famous circling technique when it was attacked by 30 Bf-109s. That was 3 times the number of the Defiants that were available at that time. Ultimately, they claimed the lives of 6 Bf-109s for the loss of only 3 of their own, which again, considering the remarkable odds, is astounding. This Lethbury Circle, as it was known, was done in order to make sure that these Defiants, which were not as fast and not as maneuverable as their counterparts, could still survive against those fighters. However, during the Battle of Britain, this device is seemingly mostly ignored, resulting in significant losses to Defiant squadrons. As we mentioned previously though, the Defiant would go on to be an amazing night fighter. In fact, the Defiant would go on to shoot down more aircraft than any other in that theatre in the Blitz of London. The Defiant then was a unique concept, and one that I feel was absolutely incredible in comparison to other fighters of its time. It's a beautiful aircraft with rather rugged charm, don't you think? It's always had a special place in my heart, and I'm glad the Defiant has now moved over to Cosford so I can visit it more easily, so I'll definitely need to do that soon. There is also apparently another one which is not an entirely original one. I think it's sort of a partial reconstruction, which is based at Kent's Battle of Britain Museum as well. If any of you guys have pictures of that, let me know in the comments, I'd love to see them. Phew, we're through with the history. Now let's have a look at the Defiant in gaming, kind of. So I can see a few instances of this aircraft in older games, or many would use dead games at this point, like Flight Simulator 2002, which is, well, great, but I can't really see anything recently at all. It really surprises me. I would have thought War Thunder would have hit this out as some sort of premium at this point, but nope, it's still not been there. And despite being a relatively well-known fighter within aviation circles, it's not in Microsoft Flight Simulator X or MSFS 2020 either that I can see. The only place I could really see this, modelled well by the way, is an IL-2 Cliffs of Dover, but it's an AI-only aircraft. I am begging someone to get this into a fully flyable state. Whether it is in IL-2, whether they make it as a custom model in War Thunder, just something, because this aircraft deserves way more recognition. And imagine how fun it would be to actually fly a Lethbury Circle with your friends in something like War Thunder, or hell, just doing it in Microsoft Flight Simulator just to show how cool the Defiant was. I mean, it's not like we're ever going to see one of these flying again in real life, is it? Okay, rather editing me, I have actually realised, whilst I was editing this, that there is footage of this game in IL-2 1946, which does actually look to be pretty good, honestly. I think it's the only place you can really fly this plane with an actual cockpit and stuff. From what I can see in IL-2 Cliffs of Dover, you can take control of it through just cycling through and taking control of an AI aircraft, but it's not the same because it's external view only. I mean, that was always the case in old school IL-2 that I played as a kid, so it looks like IL-2 1946 is actually the only place you can really fly the Defiant. Like I say, that was quite short, wasn't it? Luckily the Kitstory is a bit more detailed, so let's go on to that now. So this aircraft was really early in Airfix's life, coming into existence in 1960 with a German release by Plasti at the same time. In 1963 a more realised box art was released, and that was followed up by another Plasti release, but it would be in 1973 that the last blistered type pack was released. This revised box art was also released as a full box in 1976, spelling the end for those plastic bags. It's the box art of 1980 though, where we see the famous grinning mouth of the Defiant finally on Airfix's box art. Then we had the gross 1987 release, which is the build model again, because apparently that was a thing for ages. Even I know some of you love it, but I'm sorry I don't. And this was superseded in 1989 by the box art from 1976. For reasons. This artwork was then continually released up until 2008, where the type would stop being released by Airfix. However, in 2014, beautifully, we saw a new tooling from Airfix finally making a decent model kit of this, because other manufacturers have tried, but from what I've heard, because I've not built them, but I've heard that they're not particularly fantastic. Airfix though uses really modern techniques in order to make sure that this aircraft is absolutely stunning. And well, obviously built it now, so I know that it is indeed a really good model kit. Following its release in 2014, a double set was released in 2015 featuring a Boulton Pool Defiant and a Dornier DO17, which is an awesome combination, and I'm glad that double sets are still being released. It's also worth noting that Airfix have released a 1/48 scale version of this kit in 2016, and again in 2017 and 2020, each with different box arts. And the 2017 type is notable for being primarily the Night Fighter variant. Well, that's it for the Kitstory. We've made it halfway, guys. Make sure you're taking a drink of water, because we've still got to go through the unboxing and construction of this kit. If you've enjoyed what we watched so far, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Before we go into the unboxing. Okay then, this is the Boulton Pool Defiant Mark 1 from Airfix. Look at those spruce honeys, they look so nice. Honestly, really impressed with this kit. It's laid out really methodically as well. I love it when sprues are laid out in such a nice, easy way. Now the detail on these are awesome. Everything looks right as well. You'll see when it's put together how gorgeous this all looks, but honestly, all the detail looks beautiful. None of it's too deep or too severe, which can often be the issue a lot of people have at this scale. Everything just seems right. The transparencies are also pretty much perfect, especially considering the size of that turret. It does a pretty good job at not sort of, I don't know, becoming opaque. Sometimes when you get really small transparencies that are bent or really curved, they can risk coming a bit opaque, and these ones aren't at all. The decal sheet is pretty standard for Airfix, I'm assuming cartograph, but again, it's exactly what you expect from a modern Airfix kit. Two different options for a Night Fighter and for the Day Fighter. Stencil data here as well, which I have, little interest in, but it's helpful for you applying them later on. The instructions are, again, very standard for Airfix. I would like them to be more like the new style they have for the R35, but this is very close to that. Again, this is when Airfix was really up in their game on instructions, and they're so much nicer than they used to be. The cockpit on this is actually quite complicated, so having such nice detailed parts where everything is red when you're sort of adding a new part is really, really helpful. Overall, the construction isn't very hard, and it does also give you the instructions on where best to put it on a stand too, which is nice. I do like as well that there is coloured sections as well, so where certain things have to be certain colours, they do add that in, and then use the red to really signify when new bits are being added or removed. And of course we get the camouflage schemes all in beautiful colour. So there's nothing too surprising about this kit. It's a new Airfix kit, and it really shows. It's got really lovely details, and I just think it looks like a great kit, to be perfectly honest with you. I actually had already partly built a Defiant before. In fact, when I was originally starting to go back into model making, nearly 2 years ago now, I actually started with a Boulton Pool Defiant. This was before I started doing them on YouTube, but I was just doing it in my own time. I got to the point where it was pretty much entirely constructed and just needed the sort of glass parts putting in place, but due to a lot of things that happened in my life between then and now, the glass parts got ruined and I pretty much lost all the decals for it. So what's ended up happening is I bought a new one, and that one's still there as a reminder of where I started and what I will end up being. I'm really excited to do this model kit and excited for you guys to see the finished result. I'm quite proud of what I've done, so I guess we should probably get into the construction, right? Construction of this kit it's pretty straightforward. I mean, when you think about it, this is just, it's like a Hurricane or a Spitfire, and we built the old Airfix Spitfire and we built the new Airfix Hurricane. So this isn't really any different. It just got a little turret on the back, which, given we've done a Lancaster now, that's also not much of an issue. Initially, I'm just cutting out the big parts, so that's the fuselage halves and also the wings. The wings are relatively standard on this. You just have to put the landing gear bay in and then pop the tops of the wings on. It's really quite nice. You'll notice as well there's two pilots here, well, a pilot and a gunner that you can put in this as well, which I will be doing. I don't think I recorded the painting of that, but you've seen me do that before on the Spitfire, and if not, go back and watch that video. We're gluing the landing gear bay in place, as I said, and it just comes as one part, as you can see below. I'm doing this with Revel glue just because I think it wants to be a bit more sturdy, just in case, and actually I use Revel glue on quite a lot of the bigger parts. It tends to be a bit easier to use than the
extra thin, I find, for really large parts. Once I did eventually get that in place, I then put the tops of the wings on. Again, this is really easy and they're shaped really nicely. The Defiant has a really unique wing shape, and I mean, the model kit really does it justice, I think. I don't know, let me know below, do you like the Hurricane Defiant or the Spitfire model? I mean, I'm definitely Hurricane Defiant Spitfire, not gonna lie. In terms of the fuselage, that will go on top in the middle, and you can see it's leaving a little groove for it to sit into. There will be some little bits that we put on top of that. The actual model kit here sort of reminds me of how some Zvezda kits are put together, but we are putting the cockpit in as well, as you can see. The cockpit is actually really detailed in this kit, which is kind of surprising. On a lot of 1/72nd scale kits, you don't really see a lot of the inside detail, particularly in fighter aircraft. This is a bit more unusual. I guess it's almost like a light bomber, like the sort of fairy battle in a sense, in terms of size or how it works, so it does make sense. But I did enjoy putting the cockpit together. I don't think it was very hard, and there were a few bits that were maybe a little bit fiddly, but that's mostly because of my nails rather than the actual kit being any semblance of difficulty. Once everything was done, I then painted the interior sort of the light green colour that RAF aircraft tend to have. Again, I'm not entirely sure if this is 100% colour accurate, but it's close enough for me, and well, that's all that really matters. You'll see it so little anyway once the aircraft is put together. I don't think it's too much of a worry. You can see the cockpit being painted onto that bottom half there. It's not actually glued there, it's just I'm resting it there, so you can sort of see what it will look like. The black is then going onto the seat and some other areas which I managed to drop there, but this is just to sort of give it some distinguishment. I'm sure some of these areas were probably green or steel, but I tend to find black stands out quite well, especially when you've got a pilot over the top of it. This is something I need to probably learn more about and how to make things stand out properly, but I'm still a novice and I have no shame in that. We are gluing the cockpit in place as well, as you can see. I'm using Revell's glue yet again. I probably could have got away with extra thin here, but I mean, I didn't, so never mind. The cockpit goes in really nicely, and I think this is one of the only sections that I did later on think is actually in the right place, particularly when you have to put in the section between the cockpit and the gunner position that sort of goes up and down depending on whether the turret is in operation or not. I don't know if it's just called like a fairing or whatever it is, but that's the only bit I wasn't entirely sure on fitting wise. You can see I'm just gluing the two fuselage halves together as well, and again this went together absolutely beautifully. Honestly, I had very few issues with this kit, which is surprising because I'm quite good at managing to make things a lot more complicated than they need to be. It does look really weird at the moment because there's a lot of gaps, because there are lots of bits you have to fill in. Again, this does have a turret, so it's very different to a Hawk, a Hurricane or a Spitfire, whereas once you put the fuselage together, the only gap really is for the cockpit. Sticking the wings on that we've already assembled earlier, which I'm managing to do off camera because I'm a bit silly sometimes, is again, fits absolutely perfectly, no issues whatsoever. It's starting to look a bit more like a Defiant now, but still lots of weird gaps that, you know, might be a bit hard to understand. We're going to stick the tail in place first of all, getting all the big bits out of the way. So we need to put the rudder and the vertical or horizontal sections of the fins in place. Once they are all both in, it looks a lot more like a plane, but still looks a bit weird because of the holes, so we're going to get those filled in. You do get two options for the bit between the cockpit and the gunner position and the bit to the rear of the gunner position, which again, they all depress depending on whether the gunner is in operation or not. I chose to put mine down, even though I'm going to have mine with landing gear down, just because I thought it would look kind of cooler, and I don't know, if I ever wanted to put it up, I guess I could just snap the landing gear off and put them in place anyway. I'm just testing the gunner position, or the turret I should say, and I did actually put this mainly together off screen, but it's pretty much you stick the guns onto the side of it, stick the seat in, and that's it. Nothing overly complicated. The propeller, I will say, I also managed to do mostly off screen because there's a few fiddly parts, but I also managed to screw it up by not getting the propeller to be free moving afterwards. So mine's stuck in place, which I also had on the Hurricane. It's the same sort of propeller assembly. I did the landing gear, and again it's pretty standard, so that was pretty much construction completed at that point. I went on to painting by initially undercoating with Tamiya fine primer, and then I'm airbrushing it with Life Colours RAF Battle of Britain set. I've used this on various projects already, including my Hawker Hurricane and also on my Lancaster Bomber, so I'm very familiar with how this applies. I did, however, have some issues with my airbrush. I had recently taken it all apart and then reassembled it, and I'm assuming I've damaged something at some point because, well, it didn't work as it was meant to. Eventually I did end up brush painting some bits, but I got all the camouflage done on both my Defiant and Hurricane because I was doing both at the same time. Luckily, I have bought a new airbrush since then. As you may know, I've now got a Fender airbrush. I've actually got 2 of them. So yeah, they're now what I'm going to be using in most of my videos. But, you know, this was the last one I've done at the moment with my harder and steam back until I managed to repair it myself, which I need to learn how to do. I initially just went in with the camo based on sort of how it was meant to look. I didn't really follow anything too closely, and then I just filled in other areas with brown. Did a couple of layers, again thin layers. Once that was done and all dried, I went in with black paint for the propeller sections, and I also went in on the wheels underneath with black, and some areas also had steel. The underneath of the aircraft was painted with a sky colour, and that was all brush painted because the airbrush had essentially, well, it sort of copped it at that point, so we just decided to do it by hand. Then it was a case of applying the decals. The decals looked really nice on this kit, and I thought there was going to be massive roundels on the bottom, but turned out there weren't. It was pretty much just on the top in this one. I really like how this aircraft looks. It looks so handsome when it's got the decals on and then the camouflage. I really am tempted to build another one in the Night Fighter scheme, but I do worry that I think I'll find it a bit too boring. These side decals as well, a little bit fiddly, but not too bad. I do like that these are all filled in, unlike on my Lancaster where they had all the sort of bits where there's gaps between letters were all left blank, which I thought was a really odd choice. The propeller as well does have yellow tips on. I've just freehanded that with using Life Colours yellow paint from their Essential range. We did do some weathering off screen afterwards, but very lightly because I want this aircraft to look factory fresh and sexy.
Okay guys, that's construction over with. I'm kind of excited, honestly. I think I did quite a good job with this. Again, I still love using Life Colours paints. I think they look fantastic for RAF aircraft. This is particularly Battle of Britain colours, so perfect for this Defiant. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do the Night Fighter variant with the famous grinning mouth, or even just put the grey mouth on this version, but ultimately I decided to just go with a Defiant with black nose and camouflage. I do think it looks really handsome. Like, genuinely, I love this aircraft so much. I do think I did super well on the rear turret though, but hopefully you guys can forgive me. So let's get into this Boulton full Defiant popping off.
I won't make it easy for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time, and I don't really break too easily, but I'm worth it, cause I'll slip into your dreams tonight. Oh, so give me your all. I'll take it to Mars. Oh, I'll stick like glue inside your mind. Just watch me breaking your sweat. You're falling into me, touch me, I swear. You would do anything that I want, so keep us awake till the dawn. Baby, feel free. I wanna make you sweat on me. I wanna make you sweat on me. I got you wrapped around my finger, but don't you try to call me tomorrow. There's nothing personal in having a little fun. You wait and see if it's worth your while. So give me your all. I'll take it to Mars. Oh, I'll stick like glue inside your mind. Just watch me breaking your sweat. You're falling into me, touch me, I swear. You would do anything that I want, so keep us awake till the dawn.
Okay, so I really enjoyed this kit. So I screwed up on the transparencies, as you can see, and I think I talked about it already. I filmed this before I did the narration, so I might forget. But I mentioned it in my Hawker Hurricane video that I got the transparencies in the wings mixed up with another kit, and that was this kit. For some reason, I found them too large for the Hurricane, and then chopped them up, and then realised, no, they're for the Defiant. So I've had to use the Hurricanes one, which was slightly too small, and then made them fit, and they do look great, but it is what it is at this point. I'm not going to complain. Overall though, this kit went together like an absolute glove. I do think the turret is rather fragile, but that's to be expected. What is cool though is that you can still move it around, which I didn't expect to be the case. I remember when I was building it on Moz's Airfix and Chill livestream, and I was like, oh my god, the turret still moves, and they were like, yeah, and I was like, I didn't expect that. Even though now I built the Lancaster, and I've seen that the Lancaster's ones can still move as well if you don't glue them in place, so I probably should have expected it, but I just didn't. As to whether you should buy or fly this kit, really this just depends on whether you love the Defiant or want to build a really weird, interesting aircraft. Personally, as someone who absolutely adores the Defiant, this is a must-buy, and in fact I've bought the old Airfix kit just to do a comparison at some point and build it in the Night Fighter scheme. It shouldn't take me too long, but I understand it's not the best alpha kit. It doesn't retail for too much. I think depending if you go to a model show or if you get it from a shop, you can get this anywhere between sort of around the £10 mark up to about £16 to £20, depending on if you're buying a gift set, if you're buying from an independent retailer, or if you're buying from online. The £18 mark is, from what I can see, is still the price for the gift set, though looking on Airfix's site, I don't think they released the hang gift set for the Defiant anymore. It's just the Defiant on its own in a box, which is £11.99, which I think is a really reasonable price. This aircraft is, like, I said in the history, it's about the size of a Hawker Hurricane, so you know, it's nothing too surprising. If you were really strapped for cash, you could buy the old Airfix released, but to be honest, they tend to sell nearly the same price as this anyway, and it's much older and not as nice, so if you can save a little bit, I probably do so. It is a great kit though, and I would thoroughly recommend it. So this absolutely gets a buy from me. Well, that about wraps this video up. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I've enjoyed it so much. If you've liked this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel as well for new videos every Monday. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by becoming a channel member. The advanced kit tier does get shouted out at the end of each video. If you've recently subscribed though, don't be alarmed if your name's not right at the end. I do videos a little bit in advance, so it can take a bit of time to filter through. If you want to do a one-off, you can do a super chat, or you can support me over on Ko-fi if you don't love YouTube's ecosystem. You can do it as a monthly or as a one-off donation there as well. Remember what I always say though, only support the channel if you can genuinely afford to do so. I'm going to be making these videos anyway, and I don't want you to put yourself into hardship. Thank you so much for being here, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure as usual, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
Thank you to all of my channel members. You really help keep the channel going. Advanced kits do get a shout out, so we've got Sophie, Mrs. Time Lord, Iron Duke, 50s Bin Man, Crazy Loacher, and Explosive Water. Thank you so much for all helping to support the channel and make sure that I can buy new paints, which I've been doing so to invest back in the channel. You guys are absolutely amazing, and I don't care what level you are, you guys rock. If you enjoyed this video, as I say, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and there's a recommended video here that I think you should check out. Ooh, it's been chosen specially for you. Right, you hit the link, I'll grab the snacks, let's go watch this video together.